line on this. And we need to move towards, this kind of interoperable systems. We start with COVID-19 immunization, vaccination, but it will extend to many other areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Kate O'Brien wants to chime in too. Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to add one last point on this is that in the consideration of any requirement that might be considered about vaccination for travel either within a country or across borders, one of the sort of underlying principles would be that a vaccine would have a very substantial effect on infection status, not just disease, but on infection status and transmission to other people. And I think we've commented before that, first of all, our expectation that these vaccines are going to have the kind of magnitude of impact on transmission that we're seeing as the magnitude on disease is not very likely to be met. And secondly, the amount of information that we have about what their impact is on transmission is still very early and very incomplete. And so when we also consider what the intent would be of considering the vaccination as a requirement for travel across an international border, there are also some issues around what the vaccines actually do and whether or not they could deliver on that intent. And then finally, we don't also have vaccines that have been evaluated for people under 18 years of age or 16 years of age at this point. So when you consider the full nature of the potential benefit, the risks that have been laid out really well here of what it would actually imply, I think that those are just some other considerations in what that benefit risk analysis is.
Thank you very much all for these answers. And now we move on to Ashwin Barshinge from the Observer Times in India. Ashwin, please unmute yourself.
Thank you for consideration for my question. As per Dr. Swaminathan Madam's statement, we are going to see the emergence of improved vaccines into 2022. Is this implies to a regular booster vaccination against the COVID-19 disease as virus mutations occur periodically? How the regular booster vaccinations financing, funding going to be keep momentum of vaccination for COVID-19 disease? Thank you.
Dr. Swaminathan, please.
Live now.
Thank you for that question. I can start and maybe Kate might want to come in. So we're already thinking ahead. We are planning for all these different possibilities. And we've seen in the last few months the emergence of variants. It was not entirely unexpected, but some of the variants are of concern. As you know, WHO has a nomenclature now of how to define these variants of interest, and then variants of concern are those that are based on changes in transmission capacity, changes in the clinical features, or changes in their way they respond to drugs or vaccines. And so because of the observation that some of the vaccines seem to have a lower efficacy against particularly the B1351 variant that was described in South Africa, scientists and companies have already started thinking about the next version of the vaccine that might incorporate those mutations. And luckily, some of these platforms that are being used now, the mRNA platform and the viral vectored platforms, allow very rapid changes in the vaccine composition. And so we are working with a number of scientific expert groups around the world, as well as with the regulatory agencies, to both study the science as it is changing and evolving. And it is important that to note that we do not have all the information currently to make those decisions that you were just asking about, whether boosters will be needed and how often, and whether the boosters will be new vaccines. Those are still questions that need to be answered. We need many more. We need information on the duration of protection of existing vaccines. We still need to see whether the existing vaccines are able to prevent severe disease and death, even amongst people infected with the variants. And it is possible that that could be the case. And there are many vaccines in clinical development still using a whole host of different platforms. Some of those vaccines may be more effective. The inactivated vaccines, which use the whole virus, for example, which have all the proteins of the virus, potentially are they more effective against the variants? These are questions that need to be answered. But the COVAX